Hi, thank you so much for tuning back in to this week's reading of Max Lucado's book, The Story. This is a continuing novel of the Bible, and it is quite the adventure. So interesting. It's history. It is real history. So if you want to know about how everything was, how it all came to be, who are you? Why? All the questions, they're here from the beginning all the way to the book of Revelation. Now today, what you've tuned into is part B. And we have part A, we reviewed and went and answered the questions for chapter 17. And now it started a little bit of chapter 18. But we are going to read now chapter 18. And if you have your books, some of you do, we are on page 249. And I thank you so much for tuning in. If you are just now tuning in and not sure what we're talking about, please go to our YouTube channel, ITR Polygraph, hit either home or playlist, and you will see the playlist for Max Lucado. And it can start at chapter 1 and bring you all the way through to chapter 17. So thank you so much. There's a lot to go over. Happy May long weekend to you, and thank you for tuning in. So let's pick up right where we left off, okay? And it starts like this. Then the king ordered Asaphanaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service, home of the Israelites, from the royal family and the nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. He was to teach them the language and literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. Yes. I say yes because you know what? As I was reading that, I'm thinking, is this the story about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? And I think it is. Let's keep reading. I'm not quite sure. But we go on to read this, that their names were changed. So to Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. No, hang on a sec. Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. Yes, it is this story. Thank you. I'm so excited to read this story. This is an incredible story. So it goes on to say, but Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other men your age? The king would then have had my head because of you. Daniel then said to the guard, whom the chief official had appointed over Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, please test your servants for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. Then compare our appearance with that of the young men who eat the royal food, and treat your servants in accordance with what you see. So he agreed to this and tested them for 10 days. At the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate the royal food. So the guard took away their choice food and the wine they were to drink and gave them vegetables instead. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding of all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. At the end of the time set by the king to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked with them. He found them none equal to Daniel, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding, about which the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in the whole kingdom. And Daniel remained there until the 1st year of King Cyrus. In the 2nd year of his reign, Nebuchadnezzar had dreams. His mind was troubled, and he could not sleep. So the king summoned the magicians, enchanters, sorcerers, and astrologers to tell him what he had dreamed. When they came in and stood before the king, he said to them, "I have had a dream that troubles me, and I want to know what it means." Then the astrologers answered the king, "May the king live forever. Tell your servants the dream, and we will interpret it." The king replied to the astrologers, "This is what I firmly decided. If you do not tell me what my dream was and interpret it, I will have you cut into pieces and your houses turned into piles of rubble. But if you can tell me the dream and explain it, you will receive gifts from me and rewards of great honor. So tell me the dream and interpret it for me." Once more they replied, "Let the king tell his servants the dream, and we will interpret it." Then the king answered, "I am certain that you are trying to gain time, because you realize that this is what I firmly decided. If you do not tell me the dream, there is only one penalty for you. You have conspired to tell me misleading and wicked things, hoping the situation will change. So then, tell me the dream, and I will know that you can interpret it for me." The astrologers answered the king, "There is no one on earth who can do what the king asks. No king, whoever great and mighty, has ever asked such a thing of any magician or enchanter or astrologer. What the king asks is too difficult. No one can reveal it to the king except the gods, and they do not live among humans." This made the king so angry and furious that he ordered the execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So the decree was issued to put the wise men to death, the men who were sent to look for Daniel and his friends, to put them to death. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone out to put to death the wise men of Babylon, Daniel spoke to him with wisdom and tact. He asked the king's officer, "Why did the king issue such a harsh decree?" Arioch then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went into the king and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Then Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends might not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. During the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, "Praise be the name of God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changes times and seasons. He deposes kings and raises up others. He gives wisdom to the wise and knowledge to the discerning. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with him. I thank you and praise you, God of my ancestors. You have given me wisdom and power. You have made known to me what we asked of you. You have made known to us the dream of the king." Then Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, "Do not execute the wise men of Babylon. Take me to the king, and I will interpret his dream for him." Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, "I have found a man among the exiles from Judah who can tell the king what his dream means." The king asked Daniel, also called Belteshazzar, "Are you able to tell me what I saw in my dream and interpret it?" Daniel replied, "No wise man, enchanter, magician, or diviner can explain to the king the mystery he has asked about. But there is a God in heaven who reveals mysteries. He has shown King Nebuchadnezzar what will happen in days to come. Your dream and visions that passed through your mind as you were lying in bed are these. As your majesty was lying there, your mind turned to things to come, and the revealer of the mysteries showed you what is going to happen. As for me, this mystery has been revealed to me, not because I have any greater wisdom than anyone else alive, but so that your majesty may know the interpretation and that you may understand what went through your mind." How incredible is that? That is super incredible. Now, I need just a little drink of water. And why I wear two sets of glasses is I got a lot of hair, as you can see, but I got to get it up and off, and I'm sitting in the sun, and I'm so looking forward to being outside and reading, and I'll have my sunglasses on in the sun. It'll be great. It's coming in a couple, 3 weeks. We'll be outside, reading outside. Okay. So, can you imagine having a dream, not knowing it, and then having somebody know how to interpret your dreams? Isn't that incredible? So let's just keep reading here on what it says. So it says, first, amazingly, Daniel described the king's dream in every detail. His subsequent interpretation of Nebuchadnezzar's dream was a history lesson using the king's magnificent dream statue as a visual aid. The head of the statue was gold. The figure's chest and arms were silver, the belly and thighs bronze, the legs iron, and the feet a mix of iron and baked clay. Each part of the statue represented an empire. The statue's gold head represented Nebuchadnezzar himself and his empire. He was chief among chiefs, leader of the known world, dazzling and incomparable, but not, unfortunately, permanent. Babylon would someday give way to an inferior but momentary stronger power, the Medo-Persians under Cyrus. They would also fall to the Greeks led by Alexander the Great, and the Romans would come. The statue's feet, made partially of iron and partially of clay, would point to the globalized world of shifting power bases as history spins forward while some Bible interpreters have found in 10 toes symbolic clues to our future at the end of history. For Nebuchadnezzar, though, the message was clear and simple. God directs history, and Babylon's power, prestige, and privilege formed only a short chapter in a much larger story. Such news, at the height of an empire's influence, was bound to create such a strong response. How incredible. Could you imagine, though, that you are, there's fluff flying all around, just so you know. I'm just kind of trying to get the fluff out of here. But that you're king, and you can see that it is going to fall, and a new king is going to come. And can you imagine the terror of it? So let's keep reading and find out what happens from this. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel and paid him honor and ordered that an offering of incense be presented to him. The king said to Daniel, "Surely your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, for you were able to reveal this mystery." Then the king placed Daniel in a high position and lavished him with many gifts on him. He made him ruler over the entire province of Babylon and placed him in charge of all its wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. Daniel was gifted to interpret the meaning of dream images, but neither he nor his 3 buddies were authorized to bow down before idols. There was one thing they refused to adapt to: foreign worship practices that violated their commitment to God. In that regard, they were holdouts, malcontents, and lawbreakers. Nebuchadnezzar decided to erect a statue some 90 feet tall and 9 feet wide. Then the people were ordered to bow low and worship the statue. 3 men stood tall and refused to comply. The king was not happy. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold 60 cubits high and 6 cubits wide, and set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. He then summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other professional officials to come to the dedication of the image he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all the other provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up, and they stood before it. Then the herald loudly proclaimed, "Nations and peoples of every language, this is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall face down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. Whoever does not fall down and worship it will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace." Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, and all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language fell down and worshipped the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said to King Nebuchadnezzar, "May the king live forever. Your Majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of God, and that whoever does not fall down and worship it will be thrown into the blazing furnace. But there are some Jews whom you have set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your Majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you set up. Furious with rage, Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. So these men were brought before the king, and Nebuchadnezzar said to them, "Is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I have set up? Now when you hear the sound of the horn, flute, zither, lyre, harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, if you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not worship it, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. Then what God will be able to rescue you from my hand?" Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, "King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it. He will deliver us from your Majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your Majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you've set up." Excellent. Then Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into the blazing furnace. So these men, wearing their robes, trousers, turbans, and other clothes, were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, firmly tied, fell into the blazing furnace. I have to ask you, if you're able to send me a message, I want to know, did you know this story? Do you know what happens? And I have said it time and time again. Reading these chapters, anybody who thinks the Bible is boring, is a boring book or a boring read, you're sadly mistaken. Pick it up. It's an incredible book, an incredible history lesson about everything, about all kinds of people and scenarios and everything. It's everything you want in a book, but it's real and it's about God and it's about everything. And only because I do know how the story goes can I even be kind of like this, because I'm pretty excited to read how God is going to show up for these 3 mighty men who never once bowed down to the false idols that they were told to. Can you imagine? Let's just look at that. Let's look at that in the world today. If somebody thinks a different way, look at what social media will do. There's even what's called a cancel culture. If somebody doesn't like something, they just cancel it. If you say something, they just cancel it. Only 3 people in the whole group of everybody that's come, all the nations, everybody is bowing down. There isn't anybody who isn't, except for these 3. Can you imagine being those 3? Everybody around you would be telling you, bow down, get down before the Lord. There would be everybody telling you to do exactly the opposite of what you feel is right for you to do. We are in no different a culture today. We are I'll speak for myself. I am constantly told by all the different things that I see in our world, news, social media platforms, all kinds of stuff, bow down to what we say, bow down to the false idols, bow down to nothing, to no God. Choose no God and bow down to that. I personally, in reading this book, I hope everybody understands my answer is going to be right up there with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And if I'm the only 3 people standing, that's where I want to be counted. So I'm going to leave you with that. That's the end of part B. Oh my gosh. Come back and we're going to find out what happened to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Come right back. Thank you.